Welcome to this explainer on cardiovascular optimization. Today, we're taking some pretty dense, absolutely critical medical data and transforming it into an actionable, precise guide just for you. We're tackling a condition that affects literally billions of people across the globe. But the crazy thing is, it's felt by almost no one until it's too late. We're talking about hypertension. Over the next few minutes, we're going to break down the mechanics, the real-world risks, and the absolute most effective interventions out there, essentially turning some really complex physiology into a crystal-clear roadmap for your own cardiovascular longevity. All right, let's take a quick look at the game plan. We'll start off with the silent cardiovascular killer, move into the literal mechanics of high pressure, and then cover testing and risk profiling. After that, we'll get into optimizing with lifestyle interventions, targeted medical therapeutics, and finally, how to handle hypertensive emergencies. We're really going to lean on a think, test, and optimize approach to completely master this material. Okay, Section 1, the silent cardiovascular killer, the asymptomatic threat. Let's start the think phase by exposing a reality that operates entirely in the background, completely without symptoms, just methodically causing damage over years and years. Now, to truly optimize our health, we've got to start with a really precise definition. Blood pressure isn't just some random metric jotted down on your medical chart, right? It is the actual physical force exerted by your circulating blood against your vascular system. Think of it like a plumbing system. It's the mechanical stress load placed on the inner lining of every single artery in your entire body with every single beat of your heart. You know those two numbers you always get at the doctor's office? Well, your systolic reading, that top number, measures the shear pressure during ventricular contraction, which is when your heart actively squeezes and pumps the blood out. The diastolic reading, the bottom number, measures the pressure during ventricular relaxation. Now here's the kicker. If that bottom number stays high even when the heart is supposed to be resting, it's a massive red flag. It points straight to arterial stiffness, meaning your blood vessels just aren't as pliable as they should be. Moving right along to Section 2, mechanics of high pressure, the physics of the cardiovascular system, let's look at how this actually builds into a systemic issue within the body, cascading from basic fluid dynamics into severe organ damage. So the absolutely crucial point here is a surprisingly simple mathematical formula. Blood pressure equals cardiac output multiplied by systemic vascular resistance. Seriously, just think of your cardiovascular system as a giant physiological network of pumps, pipes, and pressure valves. If your heart rate or your stroke volume goes up, your cardiac output goes up. If your arteries become stiff and narrow, say due to plaque buildup or atherosclerosis, your systemic vascular resistance goes up. An increase in either side of this little equation literally forces your blood pressure to decline. And when we look at the clinical classifications, you kind of realize how incredibly tight the margins really are. You can go from a completely normal physiological state of 120/80, and before you know it, slipping just 11 points higher on the systolic side instantly puts you into stage 1 hypertension. If you just leave that unchecked, this escalating pressure leads directly to target organ damage. We're talking thickening of the vessel walls, chronic kidney disease, retinopathy in your eyes, and even a significantly increased risk for cognitive decline. So what's driving this behind the scenes? Well, it's a biological chain reaction known as the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, or the RAAS pathway. Here's how it plays out. Your kidneys mistakenly sense low blood flow, so they panic and release an enzyme called renin. This kicks off a cascade where angiotensin 1 is converted into angiotensin 2. And angiotensin 2, that is a very potent trigger. It causes massive vasoconstriction, meaning it clamps those blood vessels down tight while simultaneously telling your body to hoard sodium and water. So your own kidneys are literally actively driving up your vascular resistance and your total blood volume. Section 3, testing and risk profiling, the clinical reality. Because you simply cannot feel this condition, you have to proactively go hunting for it. This is our test phase. Let's be real, a single cuff reading while you're stressed out in a cold doctor's office is nowhere near enough. True optimization requires a much more rigorous, laboratory-style approach. We're talking about multiple home readings, completely averaged out over different days to get a true baseline. And we need to look beyond the cuff to rule out existing organ damage. That means running urine dipsticks to check for protein spillage, pulling comprehensive blood panels to verify your kidney filtration rate, blood sugar, thyroid function, and lipids. We might even need an ECG or an echocardiogram to see if the heart muscle has actually started remodeling itself just to fight against that high pressure. It's also super critical to understand where the pressure is actually coming from. About 90 to 95% of cases are what we call primary or essential hypertension, meaning there isn't one single smoking gun cause. Instead, it's a blend of genetics, lifestyle, and aging. But we really need to pay close attention to that remaining 5 to 10%, secondary hypertension. This sneaky variant often hides in young, normal weight, otherwise super healthy individuals. It's usually driven by a specific underlying issue, like chronic kidney disease, endocrine disorders such as Cushing's syndrome, or even chronic stimulant use. If you're young and fit but running high pressure, you absolutely must investigate those secondary causes. Section 4. Optimizing with Lifestyle Interventions. Foundational Strategies. Welcome to the Optimize phase. Before we even think about touching a prescription pad, we have to look at the most powerful foundational lifestyle strategies available to us. Just 1 kilogram. That's the magic number. 1 single kilogram of weight loss directly equates to roughly a 1 millimeter of mercury drop in your blood pressure. Meaning, if you lose 5 kilos, you drop your pressure by 5 points. Weight loss is fundamentally the single most effective lifestyle modification you can make to lower the mechanical burden on your heart. It's a real game changer. Now let's stack some more precise tools on top of that. To lower that systemic resistance, we really need to restrict sodium to less than 2 grams a day, which, to put into perspective, is under a single teaspoon of table salt. We also need 150 to 300 minutes of mixed aerobic and resistance training a week. And crucially, you absolutely need 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep to calm down your sympathetic nervous system. Chronic stress and poor sleep directly stimulate your nervous system to constrict your blood vessels. Oh, and alcohol? Honestly, avoid it entirely if you can, or at least strictly limit it to 2 drinks or fewer a day. Section 5. Targeted Medical Therapeutics. Pharmacological Interventions. Because sometimes lifestyle just isn't quite enough, and that's when we bring in these specific tools for rigorous physiological optimization. It's actually fascinating how each of these drug classes expertly targets a completely different biological mechanism. ACE inhibitors like enalapril and ARBs like losartan, they disrupt that RAS pathway we talked about earlier, directly preventing vasoconstriction. Calcium channel blockers like amlodipine block calcium from entering the heart muscle cells, which literally lowers the force of the heart's contraction. Diuretics like hydrochlorothiazide reduce the overall blood volume by clearing out excess sodium and water. And beta blockers like atenolol directly lower your heart rate. Often, effective management isn't just one pill. It requires a very specific combination of these targeted therapies to bring the pressure down safely and effectively. Now, for those of you super interested in optimization, let's explore this really cool adjunct pathway. Healthy blood vessels naturally produce nitric oxide to stay wide open and relaxed by using a simple over-the-counter supplement like L-citrulline. Dosed at about 3 to 5 grams twice daily, you provide the raw materials for your body to create arginine. That arginine then converts into nitric oxide. This promotes incredibly powerful vasodilation, directly improving your endothelial function and safely lowering your systemic vascular resistance. Finally, Section 6. Managing hypertensive emergencies. Acute interventions. It is absolutely vital to know the clinical protocols for managing severe, acute cardiovascular scenarios where the pressure hits the absolute danger zone. Okay, here is a key differentiator that could literally save a life. Both of these states feature blood pressure over 180 over 120. But hypertensive urgency means the numbers are critically high, but there's no immediate acute organ damage. Maybe you just have a really severe headache. A hypertensive emergency, however, means there is active, life-threatening organ destruction occurring right in front of you. We're talking things like a stroke, pulmonary edema, or an aortic dissection. This distinction completely changes the treatment strategy. You might think that in an emergency, you just want to drop the pressure to normal immediately, right? Actually, scratch that. The protocol is a highly controlled reduction. You want to reduce the mean arterial pressure by no more than 25% in the first hour using IV medications like labetalol. Drop it too fast and you risk starving the brain of blood. Urgencies are treated much slower, usually over 24 to 48 hours using oral meds. But there is one massive, glaring exception, an aortic dissection, where the high pressure is literally tearing the main artery right off the heart. In that very specific emergency, the goal is rapid, immediate normalization of the blood pressure to stop the tear. We've covered a tremendous amount of ground today, moving from the silent mechanics of vascular resistance all the way to life-saving emergency protocols. And it all comes back to a single profound truth. You cannot feel this happening. So, since hypertension is a silent killer methodically causing hidden organ damage, I have to leave you with this question. What evidence-based steps are you going to take today to measure, test, and actively optimize your own cardiovascular longevity? Seriously, get a cuff, take a reading, take control of your baseline data. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Catch you next time.